Thousands of local voters will head to the polls.
Election day comes as some metro counties see a record surge in COVID cases. So it had us asking, what are your voting options if you have COVID?
KCTV5's Betsy Webster is live outside of Union Station to explain how election officials in KC are handling that. Betsy.
Well, Ellen, they're trying to balance right by law with what is safe, practical, and efficient. And that's why they are suggesting, emphasis on suggesting, that those folks utilize the drive-through voting option here at Union Station. But by law, you can go do this at any polling place. And in fact, the election officials actually have to deliver a ballot to you if you're in quarantine. What's being done at Union Station with in-person absentee voting is the same now as it was in the primaries. The chief target of curbside is people physically unable to stand in line or get inside, and that's available at every polling location starting tomorrow. But the Kansas City Election Board says it's also an option for COVID-positive voters who don't want to run the risk of infecting people inside.
Because nobody knows about COVID and it could be a death sentence.
Republican Director Sean Kiefer says for the last two elections in the spring and summer, they devised a plan to have curbside for COVID-positive voters at Union Station, with just him and the Democratic director doing that.
And here we're in a pandemic, and there's just so many moving parts that we're trying to comply with.
He and the Democratic director demonstrated, geared up with masks, face shields, gloves, and gowns, which they didn't have on hand for the demo. They use a long claw pole to pass the ballot to the voter, sealed in a plastic bag. The voter then fills it out, puts it back in the bag, which then gets placed in another bag.
We spray it, we leave it set for several days, and then we'll actually go in, mask back up, open the ballot inside the bag, close it, and remake that ballot.
By law, though, someone in forced quarantine doesn't have to drive to curbside.
This is a particularly challenging year for our election officials.
An attorney with the Missouri Voter Rights Coalition explained that anyone in forced quarantine has the same rights as someone hospitalized.
Anybody who becomes ill or confined after the deadline to request a ballot by mail, the election authority has to bring an absentee ballot to them.
And the category here in this case is confined if you are in quarantine. If you fall into that category, though, election officials here are asking that you contact them to schedule an appointment for that ASAP. On a side note, poll workers can't ask you if you're COVID positive. That's private medical information, and they can't keep you from going inside a polling place to vote, despite your status. Though the election officials here say in those past two pandemic-era elections, people have been forthright with them, and the process that they set up seems to have worked well in that not one of their election workers tested positive following those two elections. Live in Kansas City, Missouri, Betsy Webster, KCTV5 News.
Yeah, it's amazing what they are doing to make sure that everyone can vote, and our props, our hats off to those folks down at Union Station. Thanks so much, Betsy, for showing us. That was really interesting.